Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Mithal Mherbi, and I work at your Summit Host 2454, the media and entertainment hub here in Abu Dhabi. I'm here to welcome you on the Abu Dhabi Media Summit third and final day, a series of inspirational talks and practical advice from successful entrepreneurs and venture investors in the front lines of innovation, including showcases from startups both from the region and the UAE. Our first speaker, Fadi Ghandour, is the founder and CEO of Aramex, one of the leading logistics and transportation companies in the Middle East and South Asia, and the first Arab-based company to go public on Nasdaq Stock Exchange. He's also a founding partner of Maktoob.com, the world's largest Arab online community acquired by Yahoo. Most importantly for today's program, Fadi is the founder and director of MENA Venture Investments, a seed capital that provides capital access to networks, mentorships, and technical expertise to startups. He's also a chairman of WAMDA, a platform designed to empower entrepreneurs in the MENA region. So please help me welcome Fadi Ghandour.
Morning. Thank you very much. I am given the task this morning. It's fantastic that we have a small crowd so that we can be more intimate today. But I'm tasked in talking about something that you already believe in. So it's going to be an easy talk for me. But maybe I'll give it a little bit of a different twist, be a bit more scientific about it, talk less about the concept of entrepreneurship, and maybe in numbers talk why entrepreneurship is talked about so much today and why it is so essential for us to focus on it. So the question of betting on entrepreneurs came to my mind and got fixed in my mind after reading a book by Jim Clifton, who is the chairman and CEO of Gallup. It's called The Coming Jobs War. So if you go through that book, he talks to us about why jobs is the most important thing on people's minds today. The most important thing on people's minds. There's a Gallup global poll that they do for every single country on earth today. And the answer, since 2005, good jobs is the #1 item on people's minds across all these countries. And the good job, there's a difference between a job and a good job. So a good job, he says, is a job that pays you every week a steady check for 30 hours of work. So keep that in mind, and our story is going to be about good jobs, steady jobs. Oops, trying to learn. Okay, so he says this is one of the most important discoveries that Gallup has ever made. And he tells us, obviously, that every single policymaker, every single policy, every single leader, every single individual, every single sheikh, every single priest, every single person on earth should have that story on their mind. And you all know some of those statistics. 7 billion people, 5 billion of them are aged over 15. Of those 3 billion say they want to work or they are working. And only 1.2 billion have those full-time, steady jobs that we're talking about. So there is 1.8 billion people on earth. It's not an Arab story only. There is 1.8 billion people on earth who do not have a steady job. So we all talk about GDP all the time, but there is this new concept that we talk about, have been talking about recently, which is the story of a national well-being rather than a GDP, the gross national well-being. And this is, he also talks about it in his book. So he says this is a story of people that feel hopeful and the people that feel hopelessness. Very simple process that he goes through. He says if you think of a ladder, the bottom of it is 0, and the top of it is 10. 10, you're feeling very good, and you feel that you're thriving. And at the bottom, you feel that you're suffering. And that is an indicator. If somebody is asked a question, where do you place yourself on that ladder? You can tell very simply whether he feels that he's thriving or he is suffering. And he says there are 7 items that we have that tell us about the well-being of a nation. And 3 of those relate to jobs. 3 of those relate to jobs. The rest are very important. Rule of law is number 1. That's for another discussion altogether. But rule of law, food and shelter, institutions, mobility and communications, open mobility and communications, totally open internet. And then he says youth development, job climate, and enhancement. So for somebody to feel that he is thriving, and for a nation to tell you that they are doing well, most probably it is going to be weighing heavily towards people that have good jobs. So if a nation says they have good jobs, then it's a thriving nation, and vice versa. So very simple. So if you want to talk about the national well-being of a country or a region, then you're automatically talking really about jobs, to simplify it, and then the power of entrepreneurship, because entrepreneurs are the primary job creators. They create new wealth, enhance the competitiveness of a nation, and the concept of dignity that we hear about in the Arab Spring today, it is about having a good job, because a good job is about independence of earning an income, because you can't be free without being independent in earning an income, independent from everyone, including the state, and you feel the sense of empowerment. So if we want to talk, again, to repeat, the science supports why entrepreneurship is so essential today. So let's take that also to another set of statistics where we talk about SMEs, and I'm sure you saw a lot of those statistics. I'll take you through the US because it's such an important and a statistical market where there is a lot of information, and then we'll go down to the Arab world and take it from there. There are, as of 2007, 6 million businesses in the US which employ 1 person or more. Out of those, 99% are companies that employ less than 500 people. So that we don't get stuck on the concept that entrepreneurship is about the Microsofts of this world only, or about the companies that hire thousands and thousands of people. No. Investment in SME is, we are also told, an investment in SME is likely to create jobs much more than an investment in a large corporation. And it says here, small firms with less than 100 employees, 2 years and younger, have the largest employment growth. It's essential, because that's entrepreneurship, really, at the end of the day. We are also told that the net generators of new jobs in the United States come from companies that are 5 years and younger. 5 years. This is a Kauffman Foundation research. Also back to the United States. So half of all employees in the private sector come from SMEs. And we've explained the rest of that. So coming all the way down to the region, 71% of our jobs in the region are generated by SMEs. But look at the mismatch. Look at the mismatch between how many jobs SMEs generate and what percentage of GDP SMEs create. And then we're also told that there is 2.3 million SMEs in the region, and and these are 90% of the enterprises. So again, this all supports the concept that it is about small and medium size. This is where we need to continue our focus, and that's why we have the power of entrepreneurship. In his book, he also tells us that from their research, if you want to know about a winning nation or a winning city or a winning neighborhood or a winning region, you have to go to schools and ask 5 to 12 graders a simple question about their view of private enterprise and entrepreneurship. If their view is positive, he says, it is most likely it is most likely that you have a generation that is coming into the leadership of that country that is positive. It is a winning city, he says. It is a winning country. That image is so essential. And in the Arab world, we all know the image of private enterprise today, specifically post the Arab Spring. Because every blame goes to the private sector, and everyone in the private sector is brushed with one story, forgetting that the private sector is really the SME world and not necessarily these big businesses that have symbiotic relationships with governments that everybody questions nowadays. And he says it's also a simple process. Go to these 5th to 12th graders and ask them simple questions. I plan to start my own business. I will invent something that will change the world. I never give up. I'm not afraid to take risks. Very simple stuff that you think about. Even it's not only the 5th to 12th graders. We need to ask even adults that question today. It's very simple. This is what gives you the impression and the positive mind frame of private enterprise, which is so essential today for the creation of jobs, because jobs are the core of the youth of our of the Arab world. And this story you all know. The unemployment of youth in the Arab world is on average 27%. It's the same in many other countries in the West post-2008 financial collapse. So we're not telling a new story today. We're not unique to this anymore. The Arab Youth Survey, which is also cited extensively, we need to say, what do these youth think in the Arab world? They tell you their number one priority is being paid, getting a fair pay for a job. Very simple, getting fair pay. And then they say also that the high cost of living is a major issue for them. So tie them together, high cost of living, fair pay. We're talking, again, it's the same story. But there is also a positive story in that it says that 26% of these Arab youth say they want to start their own business versus 4% that the U.S. mention, that people in the U.S., youth in the U.S. talk about. So there is that concept that Arabs do not want to be entrepreneurs, they only want to work in government, is also something that needs to be questioned. They're telling us no. If you open up the opportunities for us, if you create that infrastructure, then really what we want to do is start a business. 26%, a quarter. That's high. We're also told that the overwhelming majority of Arab youth think if you work hard, you will get rewarded. That also runs contrary to our conventional thinking that everything in the Arab world is about wasta. You know what wasta is. You know, if you don't know somebody, you will not get the job that you want, etc. It's not true. That's not what the Arab youth are telling us. They're telling us scientifically 90%. Even if there's 20% error, I'm happy. The majority of Arab youth say, I work hard, I get rewarded. Which is an amazing positive attitude. So for me, and I've said that a million times, I do that all the time, the story of entrepreneurship has to be a national issue, a strategic national issue today. Not only in the Arab world, but my job here is to talk about the Arab world, but in every single country on earth. The creation of good jobs is the most important thing. It is more important than anything else, in my view. Anything else. So we have to declare a national emergency, and we have to declare it now, and we will call it the war for jobs. And we need to recognize that entrepreneurship, because some of us think entrepreneurship is cool, it's trendy. Let's all talk about entrepreneurship because, you know, it's Silicon Valley and it's nice to have that. No, it's not. It's not cool. It is essential. And let's stop talking about the youth bulge because it's such a derogatory description of our youth, because it's like, it's a bulge. I need to go and have an operation and remove it. It's like a tumor. It's as if our children are a burden on us, and we don't know what to do with them, so we call them a youth bulge. There is a report from the World Bank that just came out yesterday on jobs in the Arab world, fresh. And they still talk about the youth bulge. But, you know, that's an insult. It's not a youth bulge, it's an opportunity. If countries, ask the Japanese, and they'll tell you, we beg you to increase our youth, because our country is getting old. So maybe we will export the youth bulge to Japan, and that's a new innovation from the Arab world. But no, we can't do that, and our people are here, and they are our national asset. And here's what came out from the report. I was just reading it yesterday as I was concluding my presentation. And this is the biggest problem in because it also always starts in education, ladies and gentlemen. It says the main focus of education, of the education systems, continue to be the production of future employees for the public sector. This is the World Bank talking about the Arab world. I've read most of all the executive summary, and this is the most important statement that I came out with, because that's the truth. It also tells us that there is no recognition that entrepreneurship is essential. There is no recognition that jobs outside of the public sector is important. It means we're lazy, because it's so easy to create jobs in the public sector if we're rich. So easy if we're rich now, but we don't know if we're going to be rich later and have a lot of cash and increase salaries across the board just because we have an emergency, rather than mobilizing the nation and telling them we need to create a positive attitude towards entrepreneurship, because that's where the jobs need to be done. And if we need to do that, we also need to recognize that entrepreneurship is a skill. It gets learned. You're not born an entrepreneur, ladies and gentlemen, as most of you who are entrepreneurs know. If you don't go through the process of trial and error, if you don't go through the process of education, if you don't learn the entrepreneurship skill, you're not going to make it. All right? So entrepreneurship is not an inheritance. It's not a piece of land. It's not a building. It's a human skill that you have to go through school or through work life, or somebody needs to teach you that skill so that you can become an entrepreneur. So that mismatch, what I call the mismatch of what the market requires in the private enterprise world and what we educate our kids, does not work. Because as the World Bank tells us, we're still teaching our kids to be public sector employees. And by the way, these skills are very simple. It could be language, it could be basic computer skills, and that will solve the problem of employing nationally. A friend of mine used to tell me that the best policy that I can describe the education system is that the public sector tells the people, we have failed in educating you, that's why we're going to employ you. So education, we don't need to explain that. Another thing is that you also know all very well. So what's the problem with having a company registered in one day in the Arab world? Why is it so difficult that it takes us months and months and months? And you know, doing business reports, I don't believe in, that come out from the World Bank. I don't buy them, because I am in the process. I invest in tens of businesses, and I know how difficult it is to register a business. Very simple process. Go to a place. Why is it done in Hong Kong in one day, and we can't do it in Dubai or Abu Dhabi or Amman or Cairo? Why? There's no answer. Nobody can ever answer me why the bureaucracy refuses to allow people to register company in one day, in 1 hour for that matter. And then why do we keep restrictions of visas for people? You know, entrepreneurs need to have open borders. Arabs need to travel to these markets so that they can do business. There won't be entrepreneurship on single country businesses. It is not enough. Not a single country in the Arab world is enough of a market. If Europe doesn't think it can survive as one, well, there's all sorts of issues relating to Europe and their common currency. But if they feel they can't survive as individual countries today, why do we think that the Arab world can survive as individual countries without economic integration? So why don't we let entrepreneurs travel easily? Why am I begged by the entrepreneurs that I invest in and others to find them a way to get a visa to Saudi Arabia every time? I don't know. And then this story about protection from bankruptcy. Again, it's part of the law. Why every entrepreneur should worry that if he goes bankrupt, and a lot of entrepreneurs will go bankrupt, he's going to go to jail. You know, he didn't kill anyone. He went bankrupt. It happens. That's part of the risk. That's why there is a thriving entrepreneurial society in the United States of America, because they get protected. Not from the law, but by the law. And then why don't we have an economic integration in the region? I mean, you know, the Arab League, the famous Arab League, proposed an Arab economic integration plan long before the European Union even thought, post-World War II, even thought that was essential. We've been talking about it for the past, I don't know, 60, 70 years. You tell me if there is an economic union. So if we want to talk economic blocks, if we want to talk with China, if we want to have trade with the world, at least let's have one big market so that we can talk about. I can tell you, I come from a company called Aramex, and Aramex was in the business of actually unifying that Arab market. And that's why Aramex thrives today. Because we have no nationality in the Arab world. We unite the region. That's the power. That's when I go to and talk to a German counterpart, he listens to me. Because I'm not Jordanian, I'm not Lebanese, I'm not Egyptian, I'm Arab. I have 450 million human beings in a $1 trillion economy, and he listens. Why can't we open up these things for our entrepreneurs so that they can create those businesses so that they can thrive? So building the roads, rails, ports, which is happening today, that hard infrastructure. Again, broadband is as important as an airport. Broadband is a human right. It's as important as anything else, because you can't do commerce in today's commerce, not e-commerce. You cannot do commerce without broadband. And then can we have politics being fought somewhere and leaving the business world out of it, please? I don't mind you doing whatever you want with the politics, and I won't venture into that. But let's not punish private enterprise and individuals in the Arab world because there is differences in politics in the region. And the private sector needs to stop thinking protectionism. So we need to stop lobbying our governments to protect us from competition. I mean, that's the silliest thing on earth. Because we're actually shooting ourselves in the foot. Because we're saying our products are not good enough, and we need to be protected from products that come from outside. So protect mediocrity. I mean, how silly is that? Or we have monopolistic ideas, and we think we can make millions and millions and millions of models. I lived in a business also that had one big market that was protected by a monopoly, and I thrive in that market today after it opened because that monopoly gets punished. No matter who it is, it could be a global brand in a monopoly, it will get punished when the market opens up. So why should we lobby for punishment by the consumer? And then the same story about access to capital. So we proved and we explained that 80–70% of job creators are from SMEs, yet there is no access to capital. You go to a bank, an entrepreneur goes to a bank, I'll bet you there's not a single entrepreneur that I know who doesn't have a powerful father or a father that has money and land who can get any loans from any bank in the Arab world. You need to bring your mother with you to the bank and say, here's my mother. She's going to guarantee me today. Because otherwise the bank will tell you, I'm sorry. You know, we don't bet on ideas. We don't bet on our youth. We only want big names, and we will lose massive amounts of money because we give name lending. Because we know what happened in Saudi Arabia when the story about billions of dollars being name lending, while we forget that really, it's the small guy that is creating the jobs. It's the small guy where he's going to empower and generate that economic growth in our economies. When do we need to create an SME bank that is guaranteed by international institutions? I mean, it's the World Bank that encourages us. It's the Americans that keep pushing us to give SMEs loans, and none of our governments talk about it. The Arab League came out with a whole story 2–3 years ago before the Arab Spring, and they said we have $2 billion to invest in SMEs. You know where that money is? Have you heard anything after that initial declaration? That initial press release that said $2 billion betting on SMEs in the Arab world. Where is it? I haven't seen it. It is always dependent on people that want to bet, and we have a lot of you here on these SMEs. It's the private sector that actually does that. And it's not only about public sector, ladies and gentlemen. There's plenty of Arab wealth. We get all sorts of massive international bankers visiting us every day, wanting to take our monies to invest it in the West, in Silicon Valley, because they sell us the story of how fantastic Silicon Valley is, because it's budding with entrepreneurs. I see very few people thinking very seriously from the massive private wealth that exists in the Arab world that tells me that there are massive amounts of funds that want to go, just like they went to Silicon Valley, that are going to go to the Arab Silicon Valley. I don't. I'm sorry. If any of you have seen any major funds popping up from the private sector, investing in small and medium-sized businesses, outside of the major 1 or 2 private equity companies that popped up in the region, tell me. So if the private sector wants a thriving economy, it better bet on SMEs. Because even big companies will not exist today or tomorrow or the day after if there are no SMEs, if there are no entrepreneurs. They won't. I mean, these SMEs are the consumers of the future. So let's be extremely selfish about it. Let's be extremely selfish. This is not charity. Let's be extremely selfish and say, we want to bet on these SMEs because we want to sell them things, okay? And we want to help create them so that we can sell them things. And we want to be very patient. Ladies and gentlemen, Maktoub took them 12 years to actually, from startup to exit. 12 years. So I invest a lot in startups, and people telling me, where are the exits? What exits? You know, in 2 years, it's just stupid for you to even ask that there is an exit. We need to tell these people that they're building businesses, they're not building exits. And then the private sector needs to have access to, give those entrepreneurs access to knowledge. What does that mean? It is access to our knowledge. It's our knowledge. These people that have made it, we have massive amounts of knowledge. We have a massive network. We are mentors. We have companies. We can create internships for these young guys that are studying. We can give them work experience so that they can hit the ground running when they go to the job market, so that mismatch actually gets neutralized. We need to also partner with universities, because a lot of research happens in universities that goes on the shelf. It never gets commercialized, because universities in the Arab world are controlled by the public sector, who doesn't view any value for R&D. They think it's only a research paper for a student to get graded on, rather than it could be a product that becomes Google. And the private sector can do that, but the private sector, the universities are close to the private sector. Because we're greedy people, they tell us. Because we only think about profits, they tell us. Because we don't think about national interest, they tell us. So we need to prove to them otherwise, that yes, we are investing in these young entrepreneurs, and yes, we want to invest in your students, and we will share with those universities. You know, Stanford made billions of dollars on Google. Billions of dollars, because they actually bet on it and invested in it. You know, being Jordanian, I always have to do the Jordan pitch here. So Jordan is a budding place for entrepreneurs. It has happened. It is. It is. There was a policy that was taken 10 years ago, private-public partnership, that said, we want to create in partnership the infrastructure and the private sector empowerment of that. And these numbers will tell you all sorts of things. Most of the Arab content is originating in Jordan. It has created 84,000 jobs. There are hundreds of thousands and millions of dollars of money that is going on Jordanian entrepreneurs. The Arab world is begging that Jordanian entrepreneurs come and live in their countries, because they are the techies. They are a big part of the techies in the region, and it works. There's plenty of incubators. There's plenty of Y Combinators. There's plenty of angel funds. There is an angel network in Jordan that works extremely well. And there are hundreds of entrepreneurs. I get from Jordanian entrepreneurs practically on a daily basis a business plan. finally, let me talk a bit about Maktoub again, because it's such an important story, because I think the time to start counting on when Arab tech entrepreneurship is going to happen is you take the Maktoub Yahoo acquisition, take it 10 years forward, and then on that single day, we can celebrate 10 years from now and say we have an industry. So if it happened 2 years ago, that Maktoub sold to Yahoo, go 10 years from 2 years ago, and then we can talk about exits, then we can talk about thriving entrepreneurial society that has massive amounts. So it's going to take a lot of time. Why? Maktoub, when they exited, had 250 employees, ladies and gentlemen. Jabbar Group, which is an offshoot of Maktoub, which is the remnants that stayed that Yahoo did not buy from Maktoub, is much bigger than the original story in 2 years. They were able to raise $100 million. They have 600 employees today outside of Maktoub. And there are, I'm only counting 6 companies that were offshoots today from employees that worked at Maktoub that have started their own businesses today. So there is this small ecosystem within one company. And look what it did. So, and Maktoub is not don't tell me it's an aberration. No, it's not an aberration. The guys worked hard, 12 years. They built a business. They trained their employees. And you suddenly have an ecosystem that revolves around one company. I'm sure a lot of people graduated from Microsoft. I'm sure a lot of people graduated from Apple. I'm sure a lot of people graduated from Google and started their own businesses. If you read about Silicon Valley's hirings today and the people that start businesses, they all started in one of these massive companies. And I'm telling you, it has happened in the Arab world also. Maktoub is the origin of a lot of new entrepreneurs. Hundreds of dollars. Marca VIP alone, which competes with Maktoub today, Souk, which is owned by Jabbar, has at least 200 employees in it. I rest my case. Thank you very much. And so I am also, I have the pleasure in bringing in 2, I'm not going to say young, but young entrepreneurs that are going to talk to us about their own businesses, what they've done in the Arab world, what sort of products they have. We were going to have Mai Habib with us, but Mai Habib emailed me this morning saying, there is fog. I turned back, driving from Dubai, and I was driving from Dubai. I said, no, there's no fog, and I'm driving to Abu Dhabi. So she's missing it, so we're going to have Ravi from Duplays. Come up, Ravi, please. And he's going to tell us about Duplays, which is a startup, a 3-year-old startup from Dubai, which is going regional today. And it is what's unique about Ravi, it's not unique really, it's a Gulf story, is that it is not only about Arab entrepreneurs, it's about entrepreneurship in the Arab world. So Ravi is not an Arab, even though he could look like an Arab, but he is like the rest of us. Lives in the Arab world and is betting on the Arab world and is creating jobs in the Arab world. There's nothing wrong with that. So it's entrepreneurship in the Arab world and not only for Arabs. So we are not exclusive here. And then we have Wael Attili from Kharabish. I have to do a disclosure because Wael is one of the most creative individuals, I think, in the Arab world when it comes to content and content creation. And my disclosure here is that my fund has invested in Wael, so that you know. He is here because he is creative, not because I invested in him. Please. So each will tell us their story, and then we'll open up for questions and answers. Can we start with you? Can we start with you, Wael?
Okay. Hi, Fadi. I just want to brag about something now.
Brag?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm not a rich guy yet. I still drive a Kia Sevilla, our national Jordanian car, for the middle class. But I've been able, with my amazing 4 partners, to hire 100 people in our company. We have a group of companies. One of them is Kharabish. And our story started, since school days. I met my partner at university. I graduated from Jordan University with architecture, but I never worked in architecture. But in our 4th year, we started our first business, and we failed. So after that, we said, let's go and work and get some experience, and then maybe later on we can come back and maybe at one point we open a business. And we did. After 6 years, we met again, and we had this idea of having Kharabish. Let me tell you something. Let me tell you about Kharabish. Kharabish is an online entertainment network that is completely based on YouTube and social media. We have around 20 million views per month. We've generated in 2 years more than 200 million views. We have more than 86 channels and shows. Pan-Arab, we have teams in Tunisia, Egypt, Jordan, and UAE. And hopefully we're going into the Saudi market. So this happened since 2008 when we went back and met, and we had this idea of Kharabish. At that time, each one of us has another businesses, but I was the only one who was full-time in Kharabish. And we opened in a very small apartment in Jordan, on one of the streets of Jordan in Amman. So it was really hard for my other partners to work with me. So we've decided in 2009 we met, and in a goodwill, we've decided to gather all our businesses together and support each other. This is one of the most important things for entrepreneurs, the goodwill. At the beginning, the goodwill is very important, and it can be a very key point to success. So with the goodwill, we gathered all our businesses, and we had this concept of Think Arabia. The concept of Think Arabia, because we were self-funded, and it was, as you said, it was really hard to get a loan or a fund or people, just lend us some money. So we created this system of having a service company and Kharabish as a product company. And the service company supported Kharabish until Kharabish started to generate money. And thank you, in 2010, it was a really key year for us. And this year, we've been selected in San Francisco as Endeavor Entrepreneur. And Endeavor helped us a lot in looking at things, organize ourselves, learning the true meaning of being an entrepreneur, looking at things in a much more strategic way, organizing our operation, structure, financial, and everything, things that we've missed and we've been suffering all the time. And also in the same year, at the end of that year, we got our angel investment from Fadi Media Venture and from Dash Venture. And this gave us the boost to grow from 20 employees to 100. And also in that year, I attended the Abu Dhabi Media Summit 2010. And I was really at that time, we were really young. We did not know exactly where we're heading. But at that conference, when I saw the talks and discussion between traditional media and mainstream media and big network and the whole media businesses and how they suffer and the business models, it also gave us, an inspiration of building the concept of online entertainment network. Kharabish business model is based on utilizing the technology of doing a low-cost production, high-quality content, but with zero-cost publishing. And this enables you more to have the revenue coming from advertising and revenue coming from your influence, and monetizing your IP is going to be much more efficient. And in addition, it allows you to experiment more in your ideas and your creativity. While in TV, they suffered from investing money on things that might be risky, we don't know if this show is going to be a hit show or not. So this allows us to experiment more. Basically our success stories was based on trial and error. So in Kharabish, we're trying to redefine the model of how media businesses are doing. And as I told you now, we have operation in Egypt, Tunisia, Jordan. Advertisers are started looking at us much more seriously. In our region, the YouTube and online production are getting a huge hype. And now it gave a new opportunity for advertisers for more creativity and and tackling the young audience and the youth audience of the Arab world. I just want to show a video.
Before we show the video, just 1 second, I have a question. So can you tell our friends here what education background each of you have? There are 4 of you, right?
Yeah, 4 of us.
So tell us where...
We are 5 partners.
5 partners.
3
so tell us, what's your background in terms of...
Okay.
3 because I meant to, my question here is because I want to show that anybody can be an entrepreneur at the end of the day if he wants to be an entrepreneur and learns the skill. So tell us what skills do you have originally?
Okay, skills that has nothing to do with what I'm doing now.
Exactly. So, but tell us.
So 3 of my partners are architect, me and 2 others. And we have 1 studied math and the other 1 studied finance or marketing. I don't know, business or marketing. But
and
most
then
of
where
us,
did you learn that skill?
Public school,
so
skills.
You had the urge that you wanted. Why did you start the business?
Well, I started the business because simply, I had this question: why to wait for an opportunity? Why not to create my own opportunity? And I had this urge since schools. I started my first production company when I was in 9th grade. I didn't understand what is a business or a company is. So it started from really, and me and one of my partners, we created a magazine at school. He was my schoolmate and we created a magazine, and we were, we were profitable. We had 3 JDs.
Well, I'm betting that you're gonna now be profitable.
Hopefully, this is what we're working on.
Good.
So yeah, but I just want to show a 1-minute video that shows you some of samples of our productions. Okay, not my phone.
Thank you, Wael. Ravi.
Yeah, so I guess I'll give you a little bit of background on Duplays. We started about 3 years ago. As you kind of alluded to before, I'm not Arab, I'm Canadian. One of my partners, Brian, is from New Jersey, and our other partner, Derv, is from Toronto in Canada as well. And I think for us, we moved here, and we realized quite quickly that we moved here obviously for employment, and we stopped playing organized activity. And so I used to play basketball back in Montreal at the local YMCA. Brian used to play sports, obviously, and so did Derv. And so we realized quite quickly that there were probably other, both expats as well as local Emiratis, that as you get older in life, your sport networks diminish and you stop playing organized activity and you start doing more sort of sedentary things with your time. So we started a website called duplays.com, and the at least initial goal was simply to bring people together to play sport, and then we would organize those offline activities. I think fast forward to today, we realize now that we have almost 40,000 members just in the UAE, and people struggle to find other people to play anything with, whether it's backgammon, whether it's basketball, whether it's to find a squash partner to go for a swim. So with the quite simple idea of just wanting to get people together to play activity and to kind of prolong that as they get older in life, we've now kind of come together with a business, and technology has been an important part of that. So.
And which you started in Dubai?
Started in Dubai, like I said, about 3.5, 4 years ago. Then quickly after that, Abu Dhabi. Now we just started this past summer in Delhi, outside of, or in Gurgaon actually, which is a tech suburb of Delhi. And then this month also we're starting in Riyadh. So we've tackled, I guess, two relatively challenging markets in Saudi and India, but we're excited, and I think Dubai and Abu Dhabi by extension are great places to start a business, even if you're not necessarily from the Arab world. But we're also looking outside of just this country.
Great, thank you. So we'll open the floor since we have 15 minutes. If you have any questions for any of us here, if you have any comments. Yes, sir.
Hi, my name is David Moore. I'm a lecturer here at one of the universities. A question for you, sir, about the complacency of the local community, students in particular, when they're quite set on getting government jobs as their end game. How do we actually encourage these students to actually be more entrepreneurial?
It's a sensitive question, and I have two answers for it. One, safety nets, I'm not, being a father also, we are naturally inclined to have a safety net for our own children and the nation, but then we might be overdoing it with our safety net. So instead of letting our kids go out and actually make mistakes and hurt themselves along the way, because that's what life is about, where we become too protective. If you're too protective, then that safety net ends up hurting your children. So I think safety nets in some countries are good in one sense, but they hurt people, because I'm a believer that entrepreneurs and the science and the research supports that in the countries that are less wealthy in the emerging markets, you will have, and less dependent on natural resources, you will have less entrepreneurship in them, because there's no urge. There's a need to create independent wealth. So you become dependent on a high-paying government job that takes you out from private enterprise. That's one. I also believe that work ethic and private enterprise mentality is learned. So it's our education system. So if we instill in our education system the concept that work is essential and work in private enterprise is not bad, because in some countries, I'm not saying here in the Gulf, but in some countries, there is that negative connotation, even in our education system, even in our teachers, that the private sector is really nasty. So making money is not great. Greed is associated with the private sector. So people shy away from it, even though the research, and if you had seen in most countries, indicate, and for the first time, by the way, in the Arab Youth Survey, it says that at least 50% of the population, including the Gulf, want to work in the private sector. But to be able to work in the private sector, because the demands of the private sector is different on the public sector, because we are much more focused on skills and delivery, because we have we're either public companies and we have shareholders that we are accountable for. Meritocracy is much more important in the private sector than it is in the public sector, unfortunately. And the private sector rewards meritocracy and rewards achievement, while in the public sector, many of the people that you would talk to, you would tell you, no matter how good I am, the bureaucracy does not prevents me from going up the ladder very quickly, while in the private sector, you can actually run and excel very quickly if you are doing well. So it all boils down to education, mindset, and that's generational. That's generational. You can say in Saudi Arabia, we need to have 35% of the work of every private sector company employing nationals. Absolutely we do. For those of us that do business in Saudi Arabia, we really only want to employ Saudis. I mean, it doesn't make sense that we're employing expats, with all due respect to expats. I'm an expat, all right? But get us the Saudis that are willing to work or that have the skills to do it. Nothing against them. Nothing against them. It's a generational story. It is going to take time. But we also have in the private sector a responsibility to train people that come and work for us. So, and it's not only in the Gulf, by the way. This is in other places. In Egypt, you will find people that are inclined to work in the public sector. Greece, look at Greece and the disasters that happened in Greece. You know what? Why? Because there is also an inclination in Greece for that massive safety net. When the safety net of the government went away, look at what happened. Look what happened. I do business in Cyprus. And believe me, Cypriots like to work in the government. So if you ask them, I used to have employees that worked with me. The minute that job opens up in the government, go to the government. Why? I don't know. Maybe less work. So, but you have the skill, you'll get employed. Believe me. No one in the private sector wants to employ non-nationals in a country. No one. Because it only makes sense, because the nationals know their country. Yes, sir.
Very inspiring. I'm not easily inspired. That was terrific. We have a company that is...
do you mean that I inspired you?
Yes, you did, amazingly enough.
Because
we have an American company, but what we do is produce television programming in Arabic, basically shown in the Arab world.
What's the name of the company?
Layalina.
Oh, yes.
Layalina Productions.
You're known now.
Yes, we are known now.
You're doing a film on Injaz. You see, I know everything about you.
That's right. And the film on Injaz, by the way, for those who don't know, is about entrepreneurship.
I know.
That's what the film is about, or the show is about. Our frustration is that we believe in the region, we believe in entrepreneurship, but our problem is that we are what we call in the United States, 501c3. We're a charitable organization because it is so expensive for us to produce our programming, not expensive type programming. They are, most of our shows are reality shows, not scripted. But even with that, it costs us perhaps 10 times as much to produce the programs as we get in revenue from our broadcast partners, because the advertising rates are so low throughout the Arab world. And so I'm not sure how long we can sustain ourselves with our begging bowl coming out asking for alms. And we would love to have a market that was thriving enough so that it could support programs that are very popular. Ours have millions and millions of viewers on NBC, but we still can't make enough money to even break even, let alone make a profit.
Great. So did you meet Habib Haddad from WAMDA?
Sorry?
Did you meet Habib Haddad from WAMDA?
No.
So I'm going to introduce you to him so that he can help you, because WAMDA, that's what I do for a living. Again, I connect people. WAMDA is the platform for entrepreneurs in the Arab world. They're thinking about producing, and they want to start something that relates, that puts WAMDA TV, that puts entrepreneurial stories online. So maybe there is something, and it's supported by a private equity firm here called Abraj, which is thinking of one of the few private equity firms that's scaling down in terms of going to seed investments. So there could be a match there.
That would be terrific. Thanks.
I'll talk to you about it after we're done. Yes. Yes, sir. And then after that, the gentleman in front of you.
Easy transfer.
Yes.
Hi, I'm Jeff Ramsey from eMarketer. And
from?
eMarketer. I spoke yesterday about internet statistics, about digitally what are the trends. We have about 130 people, and there was a time when you could call us a startup, but now we're 130 people, so I guess we're not a startup anymore. You mentioned at the very beginning, Fadi, about a good job. And I kind of wanted to pose a question, or maybe raise another layer of what constitutes a good job, which is a company that has a set of values or culture that makes it a nice place to work. And one of the reasons why I wanted to start eMarketer was to have a different kind of company, and unlike maybe some of the ad agencies I worked for in the past, where maybe the culture wasn't so good, I wanted to have the right culture. So this is really a question for all of the panel members. how important is culture or values in your organization in terms of your employee well-being and in terms of, what's important to you?
I have an answer, but I'll let my friends answer before.
Maybe I could answer that first. I mean, I think, when you live in a country like the UAE, it is very diverse, and just within Duplays, we have 20 employees. We kind of hired 8 in the last year, and literally, there's probably 10 different nationalities. You have Canadian, American, Indian, Pakistani, British, Australian, Filipino, and so I think, within our company, what we've recently kind of done is actually say, okay, everyone has to be responsible for their own work. We don't sort of micromanage you. You know what you have to do. We also have a very diverse workforce. So in sports, there's no, besides maybe taking a degree in sports management or sports marketing, there's no other kind of, by default, career that you'd be trained for. So we have architects, engineers, people that worked in humanities in our company. And I think it's giving ownership for projects to those people and empowering them to say, we're not going to sort of tell you what to do every day. You know what kind of the medium and long-term goals are, and you have to get there. So I think there's that also kind of level of trust and level of respect within at least our organization that we're trying to encourage and instill in people who work at Duplays.
And I think Wael would have a great answer. Wael and Kharabish and Think Arabia gets tens of highly talented people applying to work there. So maybe you have an answer. I mean, about one, retaining them and bringing those talents inside and creating an entrepreneurial culture inside the organization. And you also lose some, so that they can go and start their own businesses.
I want to be a little bit transparent because we are in a scaling phase now, and it's really hard to the cultural aspect is really challenging and hard for us at this stage. But we had this kind of mentality and policy that we don't want to hire people. The culture starts with selecting people. So we had the choice of we either bring people and give them loads of money, but they might have a bad attitude, or maybe they are not, they will be a bad influence to others. Or let's invest on really young people. So our investment was not based on these guys are very skillful or these guys has experience, because we believe that whatever we do in the market is really new, and everybody who will join us will also learn from scratch. So why not to invest in really young people coming from universities, and even sometimes we train people at school. So our culture is very young. You're talking about, for me, if I go there, I'm a dinosaur compared to the age group that we have. And we invest from the scratch. We take them white pages, and we start, work with them, train them on that. And this is why it created a culture of very young, creative, edgy, wild kind of culture inside the company. Now, there is a challenge that we're facing now, which is the scalability of how you can maintain the culture that you have, the creative culture that you have, but at the same time, you are running in a much more bigger scale, how you can manage this. And this is something that we're working on now.
So, and in short, the answer from my side is that what you're talking about is the war for talent. So the good job that you're taking, I was being technical about the good job, but the war for talent is an organization retains its people by what it gives them, in terms of knowledge, in terms of, other than salaries. And that's what corporate culture is. Corporate culture is where you grow, where you feel you are coming to the company and you're in love with it. And that's how you retain your people. So that's another side of the good job. That's a job when you're in euphoria.
It's not, sorry, we don't run it as like a company. For them, it might be another years of university, because they come and they learn and they grow. It's like, because unfortunately our educational systems does not teach you how to do a business on YouTube, or how to do a creative video, or how to do something creative. Creativity is not something that you learn at our educational systems. So this is something this is a value that we give them, And this is something that we've built over the years, and we had a reputation about that, and the challenge is how to keep that.
Last question. Yes, sir.
So, for what it's worth, first of all, it was a phenomenal talk, very inspiring. For someone who lived in California and lived supposedly the dream.
Thank you.
So, the psychology of being an entrepreneur is something that's very rarely understood. And I think that having done something in the US, let me tell you, not everyone in the US knows how to start a company, knows, what to do, which university to go to, where they're going to help you out. It's hard there as well.
Right.
It's really hard.
Right.
Now, what makes it easier is to have people in front of you, the icons of
role models, who, like yourself, Fadi, who can make you feel like it's possible. Right? Now, when I came back to the UK, there was a slight difference, but there was no change fundamentally in what was required to start a company. Things like setting up a company in a day, very easy in the UK. In fact, it's easier in the UK than it is in the US. The US costs $1,000, blah, 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 right? Finding good people, though, slightly harder. Why? Because they've got jobs in banks or consulting companies. So in some respects, the same as the US, in some respects, harder. Now, one of the things you also have in the UK is good broadband. So as I start to think about what's the problem in the Middle East, and my father's Lebanese, and I go to Beirut quite often, I get very frustrated with broadband speeds and the rest of it. Oh, Lebanon is the West on earth. It's just improved now. And they think they can be the Silicon Valley of the Arab world.
We'll see what happens. I guess the question I have is, besides the rule of law, which we know ultimately deals with things like monopolies and special deals on the side and the rest of it, is the Arab world in a position where it can create the basic technological infrastructure that would allow entrepreneurs, who, by the way, I think, and your slides suggest this, exist everywhere. I mean, there are people who want to set up companies, clearly, right? They don't want the government jobs. And there are no alternatives in the financial sector that are better. Right. If you've got those people, at what point in the future is there going to be an install base of technologies like broadband that are going to allow these entrepreneurs to get going? Because to me, if the internet is central to entrepreneurship, that to me is key. And I'm fascinated to hear it.
Our time is up. My answer is very simple, that broadband is a human right. It's not only, it's a human right because it gives you access to information, and it allows commerce to happen. So absolutely, I mean, a human right means as important as food in today's world.
I agree. My question was not whether it's a human right or not. I agree with you. My question is, when is it going to get there? I mean, Lebanon is behind, but what's it like in Egypt? What's it like here?
It's much better in Egypt, much better in Jordan, much better here, absolutely. And they got much better in Saudi Arabia. Lebanon's problem with broadband, by the way, is political. It's two ministers fighting with each other and not wanting to sign the purchase order to do broadband. It's as simple as that. That's when politics ruins a country.
Case in point.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.